Well, welcome everyone to Westcliff University's Distinguished Innovator Speaker Series. And the second speaker in our spring series, Kogan. She's an international award-winning speaker, executive coach, and CEO of the Momentum Institute. She's a recipient of the Vistage Top Performer Award for Outstanding Performance as a speaker and trainer. CEOs pay a lot of money to get her advice and guidance. Today, you're getting an hour with Vered for free. I'm Dr. Barry Sandrew, Director of Entrepreneurship at Westcliff, and your moderator today. So I'm very happy you're all able to join us this morning. We'll get to Vered in just a moment, but first I want to briefly introduce Westcliff University to those in the webinar audience who might not be familiar with the institution. Pictured here is our campus in Irvine, California. Westcliff is an accredited private institution of higher learning with over 5,000 students enrolled both live online and on campus. There are 4 colleges at Westcliff University: the College of Business, the College of Education, the College of Law, and the College of Technology and Engineering. We also offer a full stack coding bootcamp certificate and a cybersecurity bootcamp certificate. To learn more about Westcliff, including our awesome undergraduate athletic program, I invite you to visit our website at westcliff.edu, as well as Westcliff University on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. As I said, Vered Kogan is an international award-winning speaker, an executive coach, and CEO of the Momentum Institute. She's also the host of the Mindset Game podcast and a member of the prestigious Forbes Coach Council. Vered is a certified trainer in linguistic programming, hypnosis, Heartmath techniques, and numerous other modalities for transformational change. Today, she's going to speak on a topic she's very passionate about, and that is helping us build our resilience capacity and master our mindset capacity to create rapid transformational change in our careers and in our lives. Vered, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barry. It is a joy and a treat to be here today because it really is an important topic that I believe we can all benefit from.
Great. Let's start by maybe you could give a definition of resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. So the definition for resilience that I like to use is the definition that's used by the Institute of Heartmath. And the Institute of Heartmath is a research institution that I'm a certified trainer for. And they study the coherence, the communication between the heart and the brain. And essentially, how do we get into that state of optimal performance and optimal health? So they define resilience as the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, adversity, and challenges. And so when most people are asked, what does resilience mean to you? The answer that we often get is, well, it's my ability to bounce back. Yeah, so I hit some kind of an obstacle, some kind of a setback, failure, right? Something unexpected, and I bounce back. Yes, I dust myself off and get back up and keep moving. And yes, that is a component of resilience. And it's even more than that. It's also the capacity to prepare for those kinds of situations in advance so that when we do experience some kind of a setback, which, as we all know, during times of change and growth is to be expected, yes, because the body's doing new different things. When that happens, we're less likely to dip into a very kind of low energy state, and we can be at our highest performance and, even more importantly, at our highest health.
Actually, we got a question. What's the difference between resilience and strength?
Ooh, good question. So, of course, strength can mean many things. If we're referring to strength in the physical domain of resilience, that's, physical flexibility, right? The ability to endure more. So strength, when it's looked at it from the physical capacity, is used to build our resilience capacity. Yes, I mean, absolutely. Right? There's also things that we can do in the emotional domain of resilience, which we'll talk about soon, in the spiritual and also on the mental plane. And all of those help us to create a state of coherence. And coherence is that state, as I mentioned, that we want to be in as much as possible during the day to build a resilient capacity. Yeah, so we have even more strength, if you will, during hardships and unexpected times in our life.
And those are the four dimensions I heard you talking about in one of your interviews, correct? Four dimensions of resilience.
Yes.
They were, let's see, maybe there are emotions, there's physical, there's mental, and there's spiritual, correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Right. And the idea is to bring all of those into coherence,
Yeah.
correct?
So when we are practicing a really awesome tool that I'm going to teach all of you today, we are able to quickly shift into that state of coherence, to be able to allow our mind to function in the highest and best way. Of course, our body, all of our body systems to work synchronistically, right? Like a beautiful symphony, so that we can accelerate our own inner healing and of course, reduce any stress that many of us are feeling a whole lot of these days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much hitting us all the time.
Yeah.
Politics, social issues, the economy, just putting food on the table. These things constantly hit us emotionally. And unfortunately, humans haven't evolved to the point where emotions don't matter. As a matter of fact, emotions color virtually everything we do. As you would put it, emotions really are our lenses. It's the way we perceive the outside through our internal lenses, correct?
It is, absolutely. And what I would love is, if it's all right, to kind of jump into a little presentation that I've created today, because I want you, Barry, and the rest of our listeners and viewers today to get a real visceral experience of what we're talking about. And we're going to start with a technique that will allow us to access that coherent state. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started. So we've titled this "The Secret to Building Resilience." And it is in a way a secret because many of us have not been trained on how to manage stress, and not only manage stress, but even more so, build our energy, build our resilience capacity so that when stress does enter into our life, which it will, right, so that we can shift and reset much more quickly to be at our optimal state. So that state of coherence that I talked about, right, a really cool way to think of it is that your head and your heart are kind of working together. Yes, they are aligned. They are working in sync with one another, because oftentimes during the day, whether we're conscious of it or not, our head and our heart are not quite moving in the same direction. And so let's go ahead and do a quick technique together. It is called the Quick Coherence Technique by the Institute of Heartmath, because it's one of the quickest ways to shift and reset your state. And if you're feeling in a really empowered, kind of more positive state to begin with, that's great too. You're going to build even more of that resilience capacity when you do this. So, Barry, would it be all right if I guided you and the group right now through this?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's do it. So I invite you to go ahead and focus your attention in the area of your heart. If you'd like, you can actually take your hand and place it over your heart or chest area. By the way, you can do this technique with your eyes opened or closed. It is not a meditation, so you can really do it anytime, anywhere. So once again, focus your attention in the area of your heart. And then just pretend or imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. And as you do that, breathe a little slower and a little deeper than usual. And keep doing that as I talk. What's happening now is that you're synchronizing what's called your autonomic nervous system, bringing your body into a nice, healthy balance. Just find a nice, easy rhythm that's comfortable for you. So this is step one of the technique. So now we're ready for step two. As you continue to focus in your heart, make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling, such as appreciation or care for someone or something in your life. So perhaps you can try to re-experience the feeling of love for someone, maybe even a pet, maybe focusing on a special place in nature, maybe on an accomplishment. You're all very accomplished people here on the line. Maybe a happy memory, or just breathing, a feeling of calm and ease in and out of your heart. Very good. And just notice what, if anything, has shifted in these couple of minutes. Notice how you feel, how your body feels. What are you noticing, Barry, as you've done this?
I'm ready to go home.
That's awesome.
Feel totally relaxed, totally relaxed.
Yeah. So the key here is to experience that regenerative feeling, that positive feeling, because as we're going to learn very soon, when that happens, there is a nice chemical cocktail that's going into every sweet little cell in our body with really happy hormones like DHEA, which is a vitality hormone, and that offsets the stress that we are feeling. And so the more that we practice this technique, which could be done in a minute or less, right? I took a little bit longer because I trained you on it or kind of guided you through it, but it really is very quick. So the idea here is to do this multiple times a day, ideally about 4 times a day, to build your resilience capacity. So we've already said that resilience is really the ability to kind of keep that inner battery of ours as charged as it can be. Because many of us, kind of wake up in the morning with a certain amount of energy. And, as soon as we wake up, we start to think of all the stuff we need to do, or all the stuff we didn't do yesterday or didn't do well enough. And right, all that inner chatter. And, all of those emotions, all of that stress is depleting our battery, right? It's literally like taking the energy out of our inner battery. So it's really important to not only maintain our battery to be as full as it can be doing this technique, but to also use this technique anytime we're experiencing stress, challenge, or adversity. And this is why, again, the resilience capacity is really about how to prepare for and recover from, adapt in the face of stress. Because if we don't, what we're going to find is that we're going to be like this not so happy hippo, throughout the day, right? Or at the end of the day, where just the battery's on empty. There is no gas in the tank. Yes. And I invite your viewers and your listeners to go ahead and put in the chat just the word yes, if they have sometimes, experienced that, where they're just so exhausted, fatigued, depleted, that they're not able to be productive, to function, to do the many things that are on their list to do. Or perhaps they can say yes if they've had experiences where they've overreacted to something. Maybe somebody did or said something and they just, right? They just completely overreacted to the situation. Maybe there was some challenging, kind of event. And again, they weren't able to maintain their composure. Or maybe somebody, listening is really in that place of not knowing what is the next path for them, what's the right decision for them. And, they're in that kind of more paralyzed state of like, I want to take some action, but I'm not sure what the right path for me is. Or maybe they're experiencing some of the physical distress that comes from that stress that accumulates in the body. I don't know if you know this, Barry, but it's been proven that 60 to 80%, in fact, some physicians and neuroscientists say even more than that now, even more than 80% of doctor visits are stress related. The real cause for, the issues, whether the issues are migraines or, things related to our, blood pressure or, weight gain, panic attacks, many, many things in the body are stress related. But the kicker is that only 3% of people receive stress management help. And this might be a big shocker to some of you listening, that it is that high of a number, of a percentage that, our stress impacts our health. But for those of you that are familiar with the mind-body connection, you're probably not surprised. You know that having that stress in your body by not, finding ways to get coherent throughout the day can really weaken your immune system. It can create all kinds of things that we really don't want. But the thing is that most of us are not even conscious of the stress that's going on throughout the day. We're so busy doing our emails, right? Making our calls, studying for exams, building our business, whatever it is that we're doing. And we're not conscious of all of that stress, but that stress is held in the body when we are not resilient, when the energy is not moving as it needs to. So all that stress kind of gets stored in the body and we're not conscious of it, and it creates all kinds of wear and tear. So the idea here is that we want to manage our energy, because all the little stresses, right? The little ones, right? So maybe you're in traffic, maybe there's a line at the grocery store and you're in a rush. Maybe that person said the thing, or, the client, the teacher, the friend, the parent, whatever it might be, right? Said or did that thing that just set you off, pushed your button. And all of those stresses, if we're not doing anything to shift and reset, like that quick coherence technique, they do accumulate and they absolutely do impact our body. So it's so important to manage our energy. Yes, that battery, to keep it as full as it can be. And also when we are, finding a little bit of a depletion there in the battery because something's happened, to just pause for a moment, breathe in and out of our heart, and activate a renewing or positive feeling. And that will help to diminish the stress right then and there. The quicker that we can catch it, the better, before that cortisol has, a lot of impact on our health. So who's excited, right, to learn this technique? Barry, are you excited, right, to be able to really take ownership of your energy? Well, I am too. And I'm really excited to share this. Now, I am certain that, when we ask your audience here, what are they doing to build their resilience capacity, right? To manage stress in their life and be even more resilient, they probably have a whole lot of things to share. So let's go ahead and take a quick moment now. And I invite all of you to kind of just put in the chat a few words. What are you now doing? What are you doing? What works for you?
Take walks. Sound healing, meditation, run, listen to music, be in nature.
Beautiful. Yeah, lots of
deep
great
breathing
things.
and hiking. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry. Thank you all. Yeah, we can see lots of ideas, right? Things like, working with the physical body, right? Like going for a hike or stretching, working out, building that endurance. Things like rest, right? Getting sleep is an important way to build our resilience capacity, right? To get more coherent. Maybe our nutrition too. What are we putting in our bodies? Right? How are we feeding our mind, right? On that mental domain of resilience? What are we doing to condition our mind, right? With empowering things that help us to see life in that more positive way, right? Many of you talked about being in nature, right? Nature is a really great way to get coherent, right? Things like yoga or meditation have been said, right? All of those things are wonderful, right? Also to build that more kind of spiritual domain of resilience, right? Being connected to something bigger than ourselves. Of course, the emotional plane, right? Focusing on what are we grateful for? What do we have to appreciate in our life, right? Being with people that fill our battery, right? That just make us feel so good, right? All of those things are important. So Barry mentioned, early on, these 4 domains of resilience, right? So now we have an idea of what are some things that we can do to build that inner battery, right? To build energy in that battery. So there are things that we can do in the physical resilience side of things, emotional, spiritual, and mental. And right smack in the middle of that Venn diagram is the word coherence. So I want to officially introduce now, what is that word? We've heard it kind of around the presentation today, but it's really important that you get this because it's so important for your health. Coherence is that optimal state where your heart, your mind, your emotions are working together. So if you imagine like a really high performing rowing team, Yes, you got people in that rowing boat, right? They're all kind of dipping their oars in the water at the same time. And there's somebody on that boat that's saying stroke, 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 right? And everybody's doing it at the same time. They're totally in sync. And that boat just flies, right? When you are practicing that coherence technique, that is exactly what's happening in your body. So physiologically, all of your systems are working together, right? One of you mentioned music, right? Like a beautiful symphony. Yes, where your immune system, right? Your hormonal, your cardiovascular, digestive, nervous systems, they're all working together, working in sync in the same direction. And we call that energetic coordination. And that battery just fills up super fast when you practice that technique. So I want you to get a real experience of this. So I'm going to show you a really short movie. It's only 1 minute long, but here's your job. Your job is to pay attention to all that's going on inside of you. All right. So I want you to notice as you're watching this movie, what's going on in your body. So like your physical sensations and what's going on in your emotional and mental planes, right? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? All right. So let's do it. Awesome. So I would love to hear, for those of you that want to share in the Q&A, how did you feel in that first part of the movie and what happened during the second part? And while they do that, Barry, maybe you can share with us what happened for you. What did you notice as you watched that short movie?
Well, initially, of course, it was chaotic. And then, of course, the music as well helped a great deal, but then it became very calming. I question whether I was watching the same imagery in two different ways, but I don't think I was. I think there's some additional stuff. But I probably could have been watching the first part the same way, but with a more calming music. I'm not sure, but it was definitely a difference.
It was the exact same movie. So what your eyes were seeing was exactly the same. The only difference was that background music, the soundtrack, because it was there to induce certain emotions. So I'd love to kind of hear what are you noticing in the Q&A?
I felt sad and crazy, and then I felt like a king who mastered everything. Anxious, tension, and overstimulated, short of breath in the first, stressed and mute. The music helped to relax, stressed and calm. I mean, I think the amazing thing personally was the fact that it was the same. I wanted to compare the two because the difference was so dramatic. And as you said, it's basically the lens. The music was the lens we were viewing that with.
That's
correct?
right. You were seeing the world through how you feel. And that's the key here. Yeah. Is seeing the world through how we feel. Because the two different soundtracks were essentially one that induced an incoherent state in that first half, right? It induced some maybe sadness, craziness, right? As some of you said, maybe some anxiety, some not so pleasant emotions. And then that second soundtrack was there to induce a very coherent state, which means a very kind of smooth signal going from your heart up to your brain. And I'm referring to a heart rate variability pattern that's nice and smooth when we're feeling those nice, good, calm emotions, right? Going from our heart up to our head brain. And that completely changes how we see our world, right? The story that we tell ourselves about what is going on, because it is not the experiences in our life that, induce the emotions. It's the story that we're telling ourselves about those experiences, right? The meaning we give. So we tell ourselves all kinds of stories, but here's the thing. When we're experiencing some stress, whether we're conscious of it or not, we tend to see the world through kind of that first half of the movie lens, right? There's an over significance to things. right? There's maybe some fear, there's some, it's almost like hypervigilance, right? I need to protect myself, kind of energy because there's some threat or danger. And that can absolutely shift that signal that's going up to the thalamus, right, in our head brain that controls all of our executive functions, our ability to think clearly, right, and to behave in the highest, best way. So how we feel really, really makes a difference. And there are essentially two buckets of emotions, yes, that we kind of experienced, many of us in that movie, right? So the first half of the movie was there is an example of experiencing depleting emotions. Why depleting? Because they deplete our battery, right, of the energy. Yes, it depletes, right, the energy that we have available to us to respond to things in our life, right? So anytime we're experiencing what we might call an unpleasant or depleting emotion, maybe like fear, like frustration, right? Maybe we're irritated, we're sad, right? Maybe we're feeling guilt or shame or you name it, right? Dozens and dozens of other emotions, right? That has a toxic effect on our body. Literally, it's sending toxic chemicals into our body, whether we're conscious of it or not. And that not only depletes our battery, right? So we're less likely to respond well in, a situation that comes up, but it also has an effect, of course, on our physical body, on our ability to perform, how we age, and so on and so forth. On the opposite side, when we are able to shift and reset to a more renewing state, our battery power fills up. And, right, we've got this nice chemical cocktail going into our body that regenerates our system, right? Allows us to kind of plug the hole, if you will, on the drain. So one of the metaphors I like to use, Rita, for that battery is if you imagine, right here, I've got a cup, you can't quite see, but it's got water in it, right? But imagine you wake up in the morning, you've got all this energy, right? The cup is so full. And then throughout the day, there's like a little hole in the bottom of the cup, right? So we go to class or we go do our things, right? And, there are little stressors that happen. We see the dishes, right, not being done from the day before, whatever it might be, right? Little stressors, little dip, right? A little drip going on, excuse me, from the cup. And before we know it, if we're not practicing coherence, right, our cup is really empty. And then what happens is that we're not able to be resilient, to bounce back up, to recover from or adapt in the face of stress, right, challenge or adversity. So we want to be in that higher kind of renewing emotional state as much as we can, because not only will our memory be better, we'll be able to solve better, problems better. We'll be way more creative, more intuitive, right? How many of us would love to be able to, come up with creative, innovative solutions to the issues in our world, right? In our life and in our world. So in order to do that, we've got to manage our energy. So it goes back to how do we do this? So I'm going to go back now to the technique that we started with today, because I want to formally teach it to you. And then we're going to bring it back to questions so that you can learn even more about how you can apply this in your life. So there is a handout that you're going to receive. You'll get a QR code at the end of the presentation to be able to download the steps of the quick coherence technique so that you can practice at any time, anywhere. Now, you may recall that those two steps are pretty simple. I mean, you could teach it to a third grader. I mean, super, super easy in that sense, right? I mean, of like focusing your attention in your heart and focusing on something that makes you to feel, feel good. But yet, don't allow the simplicity of that to fool you. There are over 450 published peer-reviewed research studies on the state of coherence and how important it is for your health. So I'm going to show you just a little sneak peek of what you can expect when you practice this technique about 4 times a day over 6 weeks, and then continuing in over a period of 6 months. Some of you might be feeling tired, exhausted, worried, anxious, annoyed in your life. What you're seeing here is a graph of people in some very large global companies that you probably recognize, like Shell and Boeing and so on. And the employees in those companies, a sample of those employees was asked, how are you feeling? And they said, I'm feeling tired, I'm exhausted, I'm worried about something, I'm anxious, I'm annoyed, right? And you can see how when they were asked again 6 weeks later and 6 months later, that significantly dropped. They were feeling better. They were more engaged at school, at work, with their families, with their communities. right? They were able to think more clearly. They had a lot more energy, right? Their relationships improved. And why is that? It's because on a consistent basis, there was a different signal going from their heart, the physical organ of their heart, through the vagal nerve up to the thalamus in their brain, like I said, that controls their language, their thinking, their response to things, yes, in real time. So when you are incoherent, whether you're conscious of the stress or not, you've got a very irregular heart rate variability pattern. And when that travels up to your head brain, not so good, because your left and right hemisphere are not really communicating as they should. All of your body systems are not functioning like that nice rowing boat that we talked about earlier. So the ability to take just a minute or two throughout your day to shift and reset your state not only allows you in the moment to think more clearly, right, where your brain is functioning at its highest, most optimal way, right? You're able to be more productive, to do things, right? Whether it's stuff for school, stuff for work, for your business, right? Much more quickly and efficiently. And of course, also impact people more positively. But as you do that, you're also building that resilience capacity. You're filling up your energy in your cup so that when stuff happens, you're not going to dip all the way down to the bottom and just completely disconnect or want to go home, right? Because you're just exhausted. So this is the technique. There are 2 steps to it. I'm going to formally teach it to you. Then we'll practice it one more time and come back to our conversation. So just kind of as a quick overview, these are kind of the quick steps to this technique. You're going to do heart-focused breathing and then activate any positive or renewing feeling. So now I'm going to walk you even more specifically through the 2 steps, and then we'll practice it. So step 1 is where you're going to focus your attention in the area of your heart. Wherever it's safe and possible to do so, you want to take your physical hand and place it over your heart or chest area. That makes it easier for the body to kind of send energy to that area, and you'll get much better results. So then you just pretend or imagine as if your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. What that does, and as you breathe a little slower and deeper, is it allow you, as I mentioned earlier, to synchronize what's called your autonomic nervous system. So some of you may remember this from school. The autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that basically runs a lot of your body unconsciously, right? It's digesting your breakfast, lunch, or dinner, wherever you are in the world right now, right? It's breathing you, right? It's doing all of those things that you're not conscious of. And there are 2 branches to this autonomic nervous system. One that's called sympathetic, and the other is called parasympathetic. Sympathetic is that stress response, right? That kind of mobilization, right? I need to do something, right? Fight, flight kind of energy. And then parasympathetic is what we would call, kind of the, slower kind of rest, digest, kind of more relaxing energy. And for our optimal state of health, we don't want to be in stress all the time, nor do we want to be relaxed all the time, right? To the extreme, right? We need to have some level of stress, right? That's what we're meant to do, to grow, to evolve, right? We need some stress, but we just don't want to hold on to it. So the quick coherence technique allows us kind of a nice synchronization. So if you think of a car, right? There's the gas pedal and the brake pedal. The gas pedal is like the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, right? It's like, go, right? Go, do stuff, right? Do all the things that you do. And then if you don't take time to also pause and press the brake pedal from time to time, right? Really activate that parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system, you may run out of battery, right? So the idea here is to create a nice synchronization, right? Between the 2. So that's the first step. Now, the second step is where we want to get those nice chemicals into our body, right? Change the hormonal, system in our body, right? Bringing more of that DHEA, which is that vitality, also anti-aging hormone that I mentioned earlier, that offsets the cortisol in our body. So this is where we just want to make a sincere attempt to re-experience any positive feeling, right? It could be like appreciating something in our life, right? It could be caring or compassion for someone or something in our life, or confidence, joy. It really doesn't matter. Whatever emotion you activate in that second step will work. And some people will say, but things are really hard in my life right now. There really isn't much to appreciate, right? Some of you may be going through a hard time. And and there is always something to appreciate. So I always like to give the example, when our family visits Kenya, we visited multiple times a big slum in Kenya called Kibera. And this is an area where people literally have nothing, right? The kids in the photo on the right side, they literally did not have anything to eat for 2 days before this photo was taken. And yet they find joy, right? They're able to, as we walk by there, they're able to find appreciation for life itself, right? For whatever they do have. So whatever emotion you choose to activate will work. And remember, it really doesn't matter, right? You can remember a time when you were on vacation, a time when you experienced, receiving feedback, or an accomplishment of some sort, or just connecting with someone at a deeper level. So let's go ahead and do this technique together today, and then we'll complete the presentation part of our webinar here. So go ahead and focus your attention in the area of your heart. If you'd like, you can place your hand over your heart or chest area. And imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable for you. Now, make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling, such as appreciation or care for someone or something in your life. And just begin to notice how you're feeling. Maybe something has shifted. Yeah. And if sometimes you want to feel more calm as a result of doing this, or relaxed, you can focus on a time in your life when you felt very relaxed. But sometimes you want to maybe not be so relaxed. Maybe you want to feel more confident, more energized. You're about to do a presentation, or something like that. You want to experience more passion, right? When that happens, in step 2, just focus on a time or event, or re-experience that feeling of confidence or energy, whatever that is for you. And your body will dial right in to that vibration. And when that happens, not only are you increasing the vibrational rate in your own body, which increases your health, you're also radiating a more coherent field, more coherent energy into that field around your body. And that has an effect on other people. So the more coherent and resilient that you are, you will find that the people in your life are also affected by that, because you help their nervous system to feel calmer, to feel more relaxed, to feel safer. So the next time that you're experiencing some form of pressure or some form of disappointment, failure, setback, whatever that might be, remember to just take a minute to pause and get coherent. Focus your attention in the area of your heart, and then breathe slowly and deeply in and out of your heart. Activate some renewing feeling, and your body will experience that feeling in real time, no matter what is going on in your world. So that completes kind of the more formal presentation part of our webinar today. There is a QR code. You'll also get the link as a follow-up by email, where not only will you get kind of the steps to the technique, you'll also get a free course on mindset, which is really cool. 5 videos on mindset to really help you to master that as well. Check out the podcast. Barry mentioned it earlier. It's called The Mindset Game. Loads of more resources for you to tap into to be able to be at your best and give your best for our beautiful planet. So thank you. Thank you all. And Barry, I'll bring it back to you.
That was great. As simplistic as that is, intuitively, it works. It really does. I mean, I seriously was very, very calm. I felt very calm during that. And I can understand it. I mean, basically, we're busy all day, we're doing whatever we're doing, and something's always in our mind, circulating through our mind. And to just stop for just a minute and focus on something else like our breathing, it sort of puts everything back into the right bucket so that you can start again. Correct?
That's right. And that's the essence of
Basic-
empowerment and choice, so that we can shift into a more empowered state, not to be a victim to what's going on around us or who did what around us. And
Yeah.
that is just a wonderful gift to give to our body, and of course to give to the people in our life, right? Because when we're incoherent, we're not helping them to be at their highest and best, whether we're a leader or a parent or a leader of a community group, whatever it might be. It really has a huge effect on our
Right.
external environment.
Yeah, throughout the day, things happen, and yeah, I look at your rowing machine, your rowing metaphor. Basically, the oars start to lose synchronicity, and you still go fight through it. You just keep going. But if you just take a second and do that particular exercise, it gets all the oars going the same direction at the same time. And then you can go back and you've got a different perspective on things. I can definitely understand that for sure.
Yeah, and you're not suffering as you're fighting through it, right? You're doing it with more ease, right? So another analogy that I can share with you is if you think of like an EMT, right? An emergency medical technician arriving on the scene of the accident, right? We want them to be nice and coherent, because coherence is that state where they are cognitively sharp, yes, but their body's not feeling that distress. Yes. So they're able to do those things that they need to do, right? To make those quick decisions and be at their highest performance, but they're not carrying that stress, which means that there's a nice coherent signal going to their brain that allows them, to be able to come up with the most objective decisions right then and there. And that's what we all want. We don't want to operate out of fear or out of our old traumas or old stuff, old baggage. We want to operate from the highest best state, and that is that coherent state. And as we've all learned today, it really just takes a couple of minutes to do this. And the more that we do this, the more that the battery fills up, the more resilient we are when stuff does, deplete our battery, our energy. Even if we don't have time in that moment to shift and reset, we're less likely to dip and be that exhausted hippo that we saw at the beginning of the presentation.
Brad, we have a question. How do you balance this while still feeling and experiencing your emotions? Because the so-called negative emotions need to be expressed and let out. Person responding, I feel like this exercise may dismiss, repress emotions.
That's a really, really good question. So what this exercise does is that it allows us to be more resilient. Yes. Now, does it release all the negative or trapped emotions from our past? No, there are other techniques for doing that. Yeah. So this technique does not go to the unconscious level directly, but what it does is, if we stay as coherent as we can be, what it does is it allows us to be right then and there with our emotions, right? Because in order for me to kind of recognize, to shift and reset, I've got to recognize that I'm in a depleted state, right? So pausing and saying, what am I feeling right now? Right? Am I feeling worried? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling sad? What is going on, right? Am I feeling excited or, or patient, whatever that might be? And that does help us to know when to shift and reset even more. So it creates that choice point. Absolutely.
Yeah, somebody asks whether they can do this in the car when they can't close their eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. All you have to do is focus on breathing and turn off the radio.
Unless the radio has got some music that is going to activate, right, a regenerative state, like that second half of the movie that we saw. So it can be done anywhere, anytime. It's not like meditation, traditional meditation, which activates the parasympathetic branch of our autonomic nervous system, which is, more like the relaxation. It's that state of active ease. And that is why we don't have to close our eyes. We just get into a nice, smooth pattern. Right. And when we do that, what it does is it allows all of the different parts of us essentially to be in harmony. So if there are parts of us that are sad or worried, even if in that moment we don't pause to label, although labeling is a wonderful self-regulation technique even in and of itself, right? And I highly encourage people to pause and label their emotions. In fact, one of the resources that they will get is an emotions chart from me to be able to do that more easily. I wanted the group today to learn what to do, even at any moment, to be able to create more harmony between all of the parts, in their system, whether or not they pause to label that before. They'll just get better results if they do label their emotions before.
Well, I was particularly impressed by how little time it took. I challenge the people online right now. Next time you're in a stressful meeting, and just excuse yourself, and instead of going to the bathroom, go into another room and just do that for 1 minute and see what it's like to come back, because it really makes a difference. I think it really does, to reset, basically. And your perception is totally different.
It does. And Barry, if I may
so
intervene, may I intervene for just a quick moment? We actually don't even have to leave, thank you, the meeting. This is a technique that we can do while we're at the meeting, while we're in the classroom, while we're at the dinner table, while we're driving, right? Nobody knows how we're breathing. Nobody's paying attention, right? Nobody knows what we're focusing on. We can do that internally. We don't even have to have our hand over our heart or chest area. We can do it anytime, anywhere. And that is taking ownership of our energy.
Do you think this helps with sleep?
I know for a fact that it does. And if there are people that are experiencing some issues with sleep, feel free to email me at vered@momentuminstitute.com, VERED@momentuminstitute.com, and I'll send a whole ebook on sleep and how coherence helps with that. And there's lots of wonderful tips in there for those people that have that issue. Absolutely. It does help with the rhythms in the body, including the circadian rhythms, to be able to get it into a more synchronized place, to be able to sleep better and stay asleep. So fall asleep and stay asleep and wake up more regenerated.
And how often basically you're saying do this whenever you need to, frankly.
And I also
Somebody was asking how often should you do it.
Really good question that they asked. So my recommendation, our Heartmath recommends at least 4 times a day. So we recommend as soon as you wake up, because that sets the tone for the day. Also right before you fall asleep. Again, that sets the tone for the next day, and throughout the day at least twice, and certainly any times that you're conscious of the fact that you've been triggered, so that you can shift and reset. And there are sensors that Heartmath, the Institute of Heartmath, has. If you want to measure your coherence in real time, you plug it on your ear, it measures your heart rate variability pattern. Again, if people email me, I'm happy to send a link for a reduced price to that if that's something they want. That helps because then you can see your resilience capacity building over the weeks. You can actually see your average coherence levels rising in real time as you do this technique. And it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, one person was talking about how job responsibilities are becoming more challenging, and there's less appreciation for their work, and makes you into a workaholic. And typically you focus on only negative feelings and you eat a lot, etc. That's just at the time when you should be doing this, correct? When you feel that way.
You can do this, like I said, anytime, right? Because you're still filling up the battery. And yes, anytime you're noticing or have some story that you're telling yourself that you're not appreciated enough, you're not good enough, or something is going on in your life that does not match your expectations and it's activating some depleting feeling, absolutely, you want to shift and reset. Because what you're doing here, as you get coherent, not only are you raising the frequency in your own body, so all of the parts of you that might not be feeling appreciated or getting some love in the literal sense, you're also radiating more of that love out into the field. And there's more likelihood that the people around you will be impacted by that, and that there will be more rapport between you and others. So absolutely, this is a very powerful technique. Like I said, just 2 steps. The more that you practice it, the better the results. But like I said, don't believe what I share today. I invite you to practice it multiple times a day and just notice what shifts within just a few weeks. Your thoughts, the stories you tell yourself, your responses to the people or things that trigger you in your life. You will notice a different response because you're more resilient.
Very good. Um, we normally ask for 3 takeaways from our speakers, but I think you've given us more than 3, frankly. You gave us some real life lessons to help us through the day. Certainly me. I'm going to be trying this all day. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Varid.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate you being here. And where can people connect with you? You do have a podcast on YouTube, and
Yes.
that's what is it?
It's the mindset game. They can find it on YouTube if they search Vered Kogan, VeredKogan. They can go to momentuminstitute.com to learn about our training coaching programs. And they can email me directly. Happy to answer questions, share more resources, vered@momentuminstitute.com. I really encourage people to practice this because they can feel better, and everything changes when they do.
Very good. Well, thank you. Stick around, Brett. I just want to mention to everyone who our upcoming speaker is. Our next speaker in June 29th, is Kelly Fallucca. She's a founder and CEO of Sugar Please Productions, LLC, and the VP of Public Relations for Public Speaking Northwest Toastmasters. She's a Toastmaster. She has more than 15 years of experience in traditional communications, marketing, and brand development. She's a nationally sought after video coach and brand strategist who has a passion for helping people become confident communicators in a fun and easy way. We had one other speaker who talked about perfect pitch, David Friedman, that was very well received. And this takes things a little bit further, talks about anybody who's going to be speaking in public. I wanted to present our SOAR, which is Symposium of Applied Research, that's going to be happening June 1st. This is an annual Westcliff hosting event, also known as SOAR. It's a research-based event that consists of Westcliff University alumni, faculty, and students who share a passion for innovation and collaboration. They come together on campus and online to present their preliminary and completed research on various topics. The symposium aims to bring together academia, researchers, scholars, and the community to share experiences, research results, and research application. This inclusive symposium welcomes speakers and attendees from basically all specialized and interdisciplinary fields. It's a fantastic event, June 1st at 6 o'clock Pacific time. I also want to mention that on June 9th, Westcliff University has our commencement ceremony. This is our 30th anniversary, so this is a very special one. We've got a huge class. I think about 500 students are going to be graduating. And we have a commencement speaker that's really unique. His name is Hoot Gibson. Hoot Gibson is not only a Top Gun pilot who had about over 300 landings on a aircraft carrier, but he also was commander of the space shuttle. He had 5 missions on the space shuttle. He was the youngest commander of the space shuttle, and he was the first one to dock with the Russian space station Mir, which was considered to be the ending of the Cold War when he shook hands with the commander of the Russian facility. So anyway, he's going to be our speaker, and the beauty of him is this guy has absolutely no safe zones. He doesn't have a comfort zone. He goes out there and he actually risks it all. His wife is also an astronaut, so he's a very interesting person. And I'm really looking forward to him addressing our graduates. Once again, Fred, thank you so much for joining us today. This was wonderful, and I'm sure that everyone will be taking away some lessons that they'll be trying today.
My
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.